The truth is fragile, or so it would seem. Often when I think about just how fragile the truth is, how easily obfuscated, I get apathetic. Or at least I sort of long for the numbness of apathy. I think a lot about George Orwell's 1984. In it, the main character's ongoing battle with apathy is a reoccurring theme. Winston works for the records department of what is called the Ministry of Truth. His job is to constantly rewrite history to be in accordance with whatever the party line is at the moment. Constantly being aware of the fragility of history itself, the character of Winston constantly struggles with apathy. For example, we read, Winston sat back against the windowsill. It was no use going on. He was about to buy some more beer when the old man suddenly got up and shuffled rapidly into the stinking urinal at the side of the room. The extra half-liter was already working on him. Winston sat for a minute or two gazing at his empty glass, and hardly noticed when his feet carried him out into the street again. Within 20 years at the most, he reflected, the huge and simple question, was life better before the revolution than it is now, would have ceased once and for all to be answerable. But in effect, it was unanswerable even now, since the few scattered survivors from the ancient world were incapable of comparing one age with another. They remembered a million useless things, a quarrel with a workmate, a hunt for a lost bicycle pump, the expression on a long-dead sister's face, and the swirls of dust on a windy morning 70 years ago. But all the relevant facts were outside the range of their vision. They were like the ant, which can see small objects but not large ones. And when memory failed and written records were falsified, when that happened, the claim of the party to have improved the conditions of human life had got to be accepted, because there did not exist, and never again could exist, any standard against which it could be tested. Most people think of 1984 and they think of Big Brother and a massive surveillance state. But a major theme of the book is Winston's struggle with apathy and his wrestling with whether or not anything matters at all in life. That is, if truth could be so easily replaced with a lie. Of the female protagonist, Julia, he writes, she only questioned the teachings of the party when they in some way touched upon her own life. Often she was ready to accept the official mythology simply because the difference between truth and falsehood did not seem important to her. So she is described as having more of a sort of practical apathy, whereas his is more existential and overarching. I suppose I would relate to him more in that respect, but I see her apathy everywhere. When I consider truth and the world that it has to exist in, the truth is fragile and helpless. It cannot defend itself. It can't shout a protest when man misrepresents it. So easily it can be distorted. So easily it can be obscured and occulted. So easily it can be written out of man's records completely. And a lie, once exposed, can simply be replaced with another lie and another lie, and another, seemingly for as long as the sun goes around in the sky. The truth is fragile, or so it would seem. In John 18, verses 33 through 38, we read, "Then Pilate entered the judgment hall again, called Jesus, and said to him, 'Are you the king of the Jews?' Jesus answered him, 'Are you speaking for yourself about this, or did others tell you this concerning me?' Pilate answered, 'Am I a Jew? Your own nation and the chief priests have delivered you to me. What have you done?' Jesus answered, 'My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight, so that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now my kingdom is not from here.' Pilate therefore said to him, 'Are you a king then?' Jesus answered, 'You say rightly that I am a king. For this cause I was born, and for this cause I have come into the world, that I should bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice.' Pilate said to him, 'What is truth?' And when he had said this, he went out again to the Jews." And Matthew's Gospel records that before condemning Jesus to be put to death, Pilate makes a public demonstration of washing his hands. And this was after at least twice publicly declaring that he found no fault in Jesus. Pilate struggled with truth and whether truth mattered. And ultimately, his fear of an uprising amongst the Jews led him to wash his hands of the whole reality before him. Ultimately, the promise of a false peace appealed to him more than the idea of staunchly defending the truth as it stood right in front of him. In an exchange recorded a few chapters earlier in John 14, 1 through 6, just prior to Judas' betrayal of Jesus, Jesus says in conversation with his disciples, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also. And from now on you know him and have seen him." I've thought about the implications of this conversation. Jesus is identifying with God, and he calls himself the truth. He doesn't say he is truthful or full of truth. He is the truth. What does that even mean? I can't say that I fully know or understand all that it entails, but I can say this: it makes my relationship with the truth really personal. And it also takes a huge burden off. Because now I know the truth isn't fragile. It only appears that way in moments of time, to eyes of flesh. The reality is that truth can't be undone. It can't be utterly done away with. Truth is an attribute of God, and all of God's attributes harmonize. A famous Christian theologian once said, "All God's attributes are inseparably joined. They cannot be divided. No, not for a moment." It is interesting to consider, then, God's attribute of truth in relation to his transcendence and his immanence. Truth will always be, because he always is. The creation can no way rise above or even rise to the level of the Creator. God has no equal. He has no opponent. Truth, therefore, can only be obscured for a time, but it can't be destroyed. No one ever said the end times would be easy, but apathy, in light of the truth and knowledge of God, is a sin. Now is the time to consider who he is and who you are, and to decide whether or not you, like Pilate, are going to wash your hands of the whole thing in the hopes of seeking a false, temporary peace. In you, O Lord, I put my trust. Let me never be ashamed. Deliver me in your righteousness. Bow down your ear to me. Deliver me speedily. Be my rock of refuge, a fortress of defense to save me. For you are my rock and my fortress. Therefore, for your name's sake, lead me and guide me. Pull me out of the net which they have secretly laid for me. For you are my strength. Into your hand I commit my spirit. You have redeemed me, O Lord God of truth.